I'd like to welcome everybody who's going to watch us online a little bit later on. And I'd like to wish you all a very blessed 2025. This year is 5 days old already, but it just feels so fresh and new to me this morning. Well, I'm sure that you're all aware of the fact that I don't set New Year's resolutions because I break them before the sun comes up. But I do, however, ask the Lord, and I start waiting on the Lord right about from October, for a word or a phrase that is going to carry me through the year that lies ahead. 2 years ago, if you remember, I had the word to live intentionally. And everything I did intentionally. It stuck. It stuck with a couple of people close to me, and I hear them repeating it over and over, and I know that it's just a very good way to live. Last year, the word was, if God is at the center, I have enough. Do you remember the little fridge magnet with the prayer chapel? It was just enough. And I need to be content with who I am and with what I have. And this year, God has given me one word, and that's think. T-H-I-N-K. And this has been mulling through my mind for the last couple of weeks, and I know that so often I have to open my mouth and change feet. I don't know about you, but so often I do things without thinking, without just considering where this will take me, and everything seems to go pear-shaped, and I find myself in a place where I don't want to be. And so for the next couple of weeks, we are going to be looking through this word think, and we're going to take it letter by letter. And today we're going to look at the letter T, which for me stands for thoughtful. But it could also be truthful. But that's a given. That everything that comes out of my mouth needs to be truthful. It could also be trust or trustworthy. There's so many words that begin with T, and it doesn't matter, but I'm focusing in on the word thoughtful. Tinus and Patricia have made this for us. It's the word think. And every week you're going to get one more brick. One more brick. So best you come to church every Sunday. Because if you don't come, you're not going to get it. Okay, I get it. I know that life happens, but...
Can you find us on YouTube?
Unfortunately, YouTube hasn't got a mailbox. So I can't send it there. Have you it?
I'll find somebody to collect.
There you go. We'll sort that out. I get it that there are people like James who is way over in other side of the waters. We'll sort you out, James. Don't worry about that. And so every week you're going to get two little rings, and you'll get the next ones that you need to open the ring and attach the next saying to it. And eventually I can see this hanging in front of my desk and just reminding me to think all year through. So thank you, Tinus and Patricia. For me, before I say something, I need to consider whether what I'm saying or doing is actually thoughtful. Have I taken that 2-second gap just to think it through before I make it, blurt it out, and make a mess? You know, once a word is spoken, it's there. You can't take it back. It's like throwing a stone. If you throw a stone, you throw a stone, and it's going to hit something. It might just be the ground that it hits, but you can't take it back. My mother always said, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. No, that's not the truth. It is the words that people speak that hurt us the most. More than the actions that get done, it's the words that hurt us. I don't know if you remember a song some years ago. It went something like, words don't come easy to me. Well, I pray that words don't come easy to you this year. I really pray that. I pray that we would stop and think. Because sometimes words do come easy. And we say things without thinking, and they hurt. We open our mouths and we just blurt it all out, and before we know where we are, somebody is wounded and somebody is hurt. So I looked up this word in the dictionary first, thoughtful. It's an adjective. An adjective is something that describes a noun, like an adverb describes a verb. You're having an English lesson. An adjective is something that describes a noun. It means to be absorbed in or involved in the process of thought. Sometimes you can see when a person is deep in thought, their eyes seem to glaze over or they stare into the distance. And you know that they're thinking of really deep things at that point in time. Synonyms. Synonym is a word that means the same, a different word that means the same. Could be pensive or contemplative or musing or brooding or serious or solemn or dreamy or deep or profound. There's so many words that can link into this one word, thoughtful. The opposite, and this is what caught my attention, is vacant, empty, or superficial. And you can hear when something has not really been thought through. It is so superficial, you just need to scratch it, and that pain will come off very quickly. Another meaning of the word thoughtful is showing consideration for the needs of other people. When we say somebody was attentive or thoughtful, a similar word, a synonym could be considerate or caring or sympathetic or compassionate or tender or benevolent. But the opposite is inconsiderate and self-centered. And this really got me thinking. You see, thoughtfulness is more than just politeness. You know, when you politely say, good morning, how are you? You don't really care. You don't really want to know. You know, you might get an organ recital. You know, my kidneys this and my liver that and my big toe, and you're not really interested. But thoughtfulness is intentional and compassionate and considerate of others' needs, of other people's struggles, and of other people's well-being. Thoughtfulness towards other people stems from an example that you've been given. If your parents or your mentor or your teacher or your friends are thoughtful and helpful and considerate, then you're going to be like that. But our best example is Jesus. He didn't do anything superficially. He wasn't ever vacant. He wasn't ever self-centered or inconsiderate. And then I look at Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4. I'm going to center around that. Where Paul writes to the people of Philippi and says, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself, then each of you look out not only for your own interest, but also for the interests of others. Now that verse is given to you here. Honest. Because that to me is the essence of thoughtfulness. When I esteem somebody else before I look for my own need. The story goes of a very poor lady who used to sell eggs for a living. This very well-dressed woman walks up to her the one day and says, "How much are your eggs?" Not good morning, not please, not thank you, not nothing. "How much are your eggs?" The lady says, 50 cents each, ma'am. The well-dressed lady turns around and says to her, "Well, I will take 6 for £2.50. Knowing that she's doing her out of 50 cents. "I'll take the 6 eggs, or I'll leave." And the old lady says, the old salesman lady says, "Ma'am, please buy them at whatever price you want. It's a good start for me, because I haven't sold any eggs today. And this is what I need to live on." So this well-dressed lady bought her eggs at a bargain price and left feeling that she'd won the battle. You know what it's like when we feel like we've won. She got into a fancy car and went to a fancy restaurant with her fancy friend. And she and her friend ordered whatever they felt like off the menu, and they ate very little and left a lot on the plate. They paid the bill, which was 150, and they gave 200, telling the owner to keep the change as a tip. The story might seem quite normal, because that's what we do. But it was actually very unfair to the egg seller. It's something we don't think about. I scored 50 cents. I wasted 200 rand. And we all do it. We do it without even thinking. And then my question is, why do we always need to know, to show that we have power when we buy from the needy or when we support the needy? And why are we always generous to those who don't need our generosity? We sometimes just get the equation wrong. I once read this somewhere, don't ask me where. A father used to buy goods from poor people at a high price, even though he didn't really need the things. And sometimes he paid much more than he should have for them. One day his son asked him, "Dad, why are you doing this?" And his father said, "It's charity wrapped with dignity, my son." And sometimes we forget that. We're so concerned for our own interest that we don't look out for the interests of others. And maybe our actions should be charity wrapped with dignity. The food. The food. Sometimes it just goes past us. We don't for a moment consider that there are some people who depend on it. And we just walk on. And then I look at Philippians 2:4, and I looked at it in the Expositor's Bible, an incredible Bible, if ever you can lay your hand on it. And it says the following about Philippians 2:4. Selfishness, as well as arrogance, needs to be resisted. This is an even more pervading and inward evil. In dealing with it, we are not required to have no eye at all for our own things. Indeed, they are our providential charge and they must be cared for. But we are required not only to look for our own, but every man on the things of others. We have to learn to put ourselves in another's place, to recognize how things affect them, to sympathize with their natural feelings in reference to them, and to give effect in speech and in conduct to the impressions arising from them. So a Christian man is to love his neighbour as himself, only with a tenderer sense of obligation and consciousness, of more constraining motive than to be attained by the Israelites of old. Lovingly to do right to a brother's claims and to his welfare should be the principle of action with which we take care of our own. Arrogance and selfishness, perhaps disguised in fairer forms, had bred the disturbance in Philippi. And some baleful forces are present everywhere in all the churches to this day, and have often run riot in the house of God. How shall the ugliness and the hatefulness of everyday selfishness and everyday self-assertion and everyday strifes of the Christians be impressed upon our minds? How are we to be awakened to our true calling in lowliness and in love? A mouthful, but an incredible thought that our thoughtfulness should start here. It starts in our home, and then it bubbles over to here. Proverbs 16:23 says, "Wise people think before they speak, so their words are more effective." And sometimes, just because someone doesn't have what we have, we speak down to them. And we are not thoughtful. And we are not kind. You know, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. And we need to make sure that we don't have to open our mouth and change feet every time we speak. So what is the character of thoughtfulness? Thoughtfulness means spending time putting yourself in other people's shoes, or in the words of Trevor Hudson, to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. It means considering what is in the best interest of others before I consider my own. It means putting into thought those things which could make other people feel more important. Thoughtfulness involves focusing on caring for others through your words and your actions. What is the power of thoughtfulness? Well, thoughtfulness brings about satisfaction, not only for the person who's thoughtful, but for the person receiving that unselfish act. And then I ask the question, is thoughtfulness working in you? How do I exhibit thoughtfulness in my daily life? What can I do to develop a better attitude? Or how can I take the lead in being more thoughtful? On the other side, what blocks thoughtfulness in your life? What stops you from being thoughtful? Selfish ambition? Pride? Arrogance? There's such beautiful examples of thoughtfulness in the scriptures. In Matthew 27, from 57, I read of Joseph of Arimathea, this incredibly rich man, who spared no thought, went to Pilate and asked if he could take down the body of Jesus from the cross and lay it in his own tomb, a brand new tomb, a tomb that had never been used before. Or in Mark 8:22, I read of Jesus healing blind Bartimaeus and saying to him, Can you see? And Bartimaeus says, no, I can just see shadows like trees. And Jesus touches his eyes again until he can see clearly. Or in Luke 7, I read of the lady who comes, lady of ill reputation, a prostitute, who breaks an alabaster jar of the most expensive oil and washes Jesus' feet with it. But the greatest example of thoughtfulness I find on the cross in Matthew 19:25, where Jesus looks at his mother. He's on the cross. He looks at his mother standing there and says to John, son, behold your mother. In other words, John, I'm going to die now. Please will you look after my mom? There are enough examples of negative thoughtfulness in the scriptures as well. We read about in Genesis 31 how Laban tries to cheat Jacob out of getting a flock. Do you remember the story? Laban says, all the sheep that are speckled you can take, and all the sheep that are striped I will take. Remember? And the angel wakes Jacob up at night and says, son, watch. The striped sheep are mating with the speckled sheep, so you're going to have striped sheep and you're going to have the whole herd. You know, it's just, I think of Jonah. Jonah who is so mad at God for forgiving the Ninevites because he's got egg on his face. And then when God causes the plant that had grown up, sprung up, and brought shade over Jonah's head to die, Jonah's made it cloud. And it's just negative, and all this negativity just pours out. And then I look at Philippians, where Paul says to these people, look out for each other. Consider other people greater than yourself. Consider the interests of others before you consider the interests of your own. But I also found it in Colossians 3. And this is what Mias preached out of last week. From 13 to 17 it says, be tolerant with one another and forgive one another whenever you have a complaint against someone else. You must forgive just as the Lord has forgiven you. And to all these qualities add love, which binds all things together in perfect unity. And the peace that Christ gives is to guide you in the decisions you make. I love it. The peace that Christ gives is to guide you in all decisions. It's not just me making a decision, but it's me waiting on the Lord. Verse 17 says, everything you do or say then should be done in the name of the Lord Jesus, as you give thanks to him through God the Father. In 1 Peter 3, Peter tells us to consider others by paying attention and care to their feelings first, before my own. Friends, this is not natural. This is not normal. It's not the way we are wired. But when we truly give our lives to the Lord, he starts rewiring us, resetting the core of our being, so that we can put the needs of others before ourselves. Thoughtlessness, lack of consideration, rudeness, and selfishness are the opposites of thoughtfulness. And often, these rotten fruits elevate us to the point of causing us to be rude, callous, and unconcerned about the needs of others. We fail to see people as the primary importance of God's creation. We treat people with such disdain. You see it every time you go to a supermarket. Somebody throwing all their toys out the car. Wow. When they could have just stopped for a moment and thought about it. We're all human. mistake. So how do you define thoughtfulness in your own life? Do you consider yourself to be someone who lifts other people up? Or someone who's always just in such a rush to do their own thing and not the things of others? How much time do you spend thinking about how you could help other people instead of thinking about how you can elevate yourself? What are the things that cause me to not be thoughtful with others? Maybe we should just consider when have you been filled with thoughtfulness the most? What has made you stop and think? Just to show appreciation to others by saying please and thank you is the most incredible act of thoughtfulness. But we don't do it. We just accept it. And do you know where we accept it the most? Is with our significant other. Get my shoes for me. No, please will you get my shoes for me? Thank you. It comes in the things we expect other people to do for us. Never ever do we stop to say thank you. We as Christians should never be unkind to any person for whatever reason. That's a big statement. We're called to build each other up. And that cannot happen when we tear each other down. It cannot happen when we are rude or when we gossip or when we ignore other people. It's just the most amazing things that happen when we start becoming thoughtful. When you sit there and you watch somebody and you realize that is what they're going to need next, and you just get up and you do it. Sometimes costs you absolutely nothing. Being thoughtful is an attitude that we need to cultivate. It's a temperament which should flow out from us, which other people want to copy, which other people want to emulate. It is something that I've seen happen in this church not once. More blessing, virtually every day. If we see the amount that we do for people that we don't even know, if you see the amount we give away to people that we don't know, but we give it anyway. And your generosity and your thoughtfulness is something that really strikes me all the time. And so it's the start of a new year, and we're going to do things the way that the Hebrew people would do. Got a little swimming pool at the back there. If you're getting hot, you can sit in it, that's fine. But I'm going to ask you to take off your shoes and socks and walk through the water. One of the leaders will dry your feet for you. So that we wash off the old year. We wash off the selfishness, the own ambition. And we walk into the new year with feet that are clean. Just the whole idea of just being considerate. And then I want you to come and have communion. And Nikki and I will serve you communion. And then as you turn around and walk out, or walk away from the communion table, I've got karusep on the table there, which is something that the Hebrew people, the Jewish people would be eating on New Year, which is apples and nuts and honey and cinnamon. I don't put nut on because I don't know who's allergic to nuts. Am I being thoughtful? Yes. I've thought it through. I'm scared that there's somebody here who's allergic to nuts, and I don't know who it is. And so there's honey and cinnamon on those apples. Please take one and enjoy it. And let's try and do this as quietly as we can. So best you kick off your shoes where you are. And then we'll walk. You can either walk outside. No, let's walk down the side there. It's a bit rocky and stony outside. Might hurt your feet. And then through the water. And then somebody will dry your feet so you can see. I'm going to get there first, and Nikki, you'll have to help us so that we can dry the leaders' feet so that you can dry the other feet.